Hello, this is AM, and I am going to be presenting to you the principles of plain language. Um, for those of you who do not know what plain language is or why we use it, plain language is communication that your audience or readers can understand the first time they hear or read it, and it's to make your message stand out. Helps people find what they need, understand what they find, and use what they find to meet their needs. Plain language shows customer focus, communicates effectively, reduces barriers, and reduces our time spent explaining. The other really important thing about plain language is that it improves compliance. We are providing people with information that has to do with their well-being, their livelihood. Sometimes it is life and death matters. And so it's very, very important that they will be able to understand the information we are giving them the first time they hear it or read it. So what are the main elements of plain language? Big, big, big one is how are you organizing your information? Are you using the active voice? That's a really big one. Common everyday words, using short sentences, using you and other pronouns like she, her, we, they, I, lists and tables, and then, of course, easy to read design features. Of course, I hear a lot of myths about plain language that I've heard people say that it needs to be at a fourth grade reading level for everybody. That is not necessarily true. Plain language is not baby talk or an attempt to be playful or politically correct. It's not stripping out necessary technical or legal information. It is not polishing after you finish your writing, and it is not imprecise. Plain language is plain, but it's got all the necessary information. Help the reader find it, help the reader understand it. Remember, if your document doesn't do both of these things, it's not plain language. So emails, written communications of any form, but also when you're speaking to a caller. It's really important that they can find the information they need and they can understand the information. So the important step in this is identifying who your audience is. One of the most popular plain language myths is that you have to dumb down your content so that everyone everywhere can read it. That's not true. The first rule of plain language is to write for your audience. Use language your audience knows and feels comfortable with. Take your, think of why the user needs to read your document. Keep in mind their level of expertise. We have a variety of people we serve. However, there is what we think of as the 90%. We're going to think about the broadest spectrum of people and write for that audience and speak to that audience. Because even experts prefer a clearly written document. And then, of course, we also need to worry and think about organization. So organizing to meet your reader's needs. Anticipate the questions an informed reader is likely to ask. People read documents and visit websites to get answers. So they want to know how to do something or what happens if they don't do something, and they want to gain this knowledge quickly. So organize your document to respond to those concerns. Think through the questions your audience is likely to ask, and then organize your material in the order that they ask them. For regulations and other complex documents, creating a table of contents is very helpful. In emails that we send, it's very helpful to use bullet points and headings. So the headings are really great because they allow that reader to quickly get the relevant information, break up the information so they're only going to what they need necessarily. And of course, the human eye loves blank space on the page. It gives us a little mental break so that we can process and take in information. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been in situations where I look at something like this and I think, oh boy, how am I even going to get the information that I need from this document? I need to know, just one small piece of information, and all of these unnecessary words and these parentheses, and it's all together. It's wordy, dense construction. It's a huge problem, and especially in official documents. Um, to address this problem, I think it's really important to become critical of your own writing and consider whether you need every word. Challenge every word. Do you need it? Because guess what? All of that information is here as well. So limit your paragraphs to one subject or step. Smaller bites of info are easier to digest. It's good to aim for no more than 7 lines in a paragraph. So just some handy reminders here that I just spoke to a bit. One additional piece here is about the use of pronouns. So pronouns, again, he, she, her, we, you, they speak directly to the reader. They make your writing relevant to readers, require less translation from your readers, eliminates unnecessary words. It's always a good idea to use we to refer to our agency and you for the reader. One really important note here is that this is for external communications. So this is our communications to clients and IPs and outside partners. That's when we're going to be using these tools. When we are creating internal documents such as CRM notes, there is a different process where we do use the third person. However, today we're talking about external plain language principles. So just a reminder there, pronouns, short sentences, short paragraphs. Here's another example of a very important notice from the Coast Guard regarding carbon monoxide detection devices. And as you can see, this is 72 words, and there's some parentheses. It's a little bit dense, and it goes into some detail. This last sentence in particular is particularly wordy. A variety of technologies is available for detecting the presence of CO on boats and should be considered by recreational boaters to reduce their risk of injury or death while boating. Now check out this rewrite. We got the same information in short sentences, easy to digest, easy to process. And look at that last sentence compared to the previous. You may choose from a variety of devices. Same information, just without all those words. So the next thing I want to talk about is active versus passive voice. Active voice is clear and concise and direct. You know who is speaking, you know who is taking action, and the sentences are much easier and dynamic, easier to read and dynamic. Passive voice is very common of government documents and very bureaucratic. An example, mistakes were made is a very classic passive sentence. So inactive, in passive voice, the person is usually after the verb, the action. So Arlene was promoted by her boss. A more active way of phrasing that would be Arlene's boss promoted her. So just a little example without getting too deep into the grammar, because that's not always easy to do and stick to plain language. But basically, don't sound so bureaucratic. Limit your jargon and acronyms. Acronyms are a big deal at Consumer Direct. We are using a ton of acronyms all the time. We have a list of acronyms, and then people have their own acronyms. I get confused with how many acronyms that we have at Consumer Direct. And so absolutely an external consumer, an IP, a client, a partner will absolutely be confused by our acronyms and jargon. So it's important to spell things out for them and make sure they understand the first time the information that they need. Contractions aren't bad. The test for this that I often talk about is great thing to do is to say things out loud, to read your email out loud to test it for plain language. Chances are you're using contractions, you're not using long words, so using everyday words is really important as well, and that'll be caught if you do read your stuff out loud. Here's a handy little list for you of some very common words that are used and some everyday words that you could use instead. So implement is one that I see a lot. Start is a perfectly fine word that means the same thing. Submit is one I see. Send or give works just as well. Demonstrate is a big one. To show us, prove to us, that's going to be much easier to understand by most people. Okay, so let's do an exercise. And this is a recording, so you can pause the recording and do this exercise if you would like. Rewrite this paragraph, and here's some reminders of what you should do. Eliminate those excess words, excess content. This is a very wordy paragraph, long sentence really, it could be. So yeah, go ahead and pause the recording, do the exercise, and then I'll show you my rewrite on the next page. So as you can see, I worked hard to get rid of redundancies, excess words. I put pronouns in there, and I got all of the relevant information in half of the amount of words. So hopefully you did that exercise as well and rewrote it as well as that. All right, so the last thing I have for you is some resources. These are great tools if you are not sure if the work that you're writing, if the email you're writing is using plain language, you can go to these for lots of resources. The Hemingway app is one that I use quite a bit. You can actually just plug your text. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that with any personal health information or personal identifying information. But if you wanted to put some of your words in the Hemingway app and hit, I think you just hit a button and it simplifies the language and turns it into plain language. But there's other things out there. And then as you practice, it becomes more and more natural. Yeah, so that's all I have today. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your plain language writing.